miss the show for all your latest UFC news and rumors, it's Brian Coyle. It's Sean Stanley. It's the TFM Live podcast. And it's now.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to TFM Live, the official podcast of the FullMountMMA.com. I am Brian Coyle, joined alongside Sean Stanley. And Sean, we were going to record earlier in the day on Wednesday, but we decided to wait until after. And I think it was a great decision because we're recording this on Wednesday night because there is more stuff breaking about Conor McGregor and this pipe dream of him jumping up the ranks. And you joked about it multiple times on this show. Like, he's not going to stop until he fights John Jones eventually at heavyweight. That idea may not be as crazy as you think. And let me counter this by saying, I'm not saying he's going to go all the way up, but if Conor McGregor wins against Rafael dos Anjos, the tea leaves McGregor himself and all of the reporters, all the big time guys are basically tapped into this, are basically saying we're going to get Robbie Lawler and Conor McGregor at UFC 200 if Conor McGregor beats Rafael dos Anjos at UFC 196. I want to have you start on this because I can't, like, it's such a weird concept, and you've been talking about it just jokingly. What do you think about all this?
I mean, this is my issue with everything because you got the guys that fight at these weights, you know, kind of doing elimination bouts and everything else, and now you're going to have, you know, Conor McGregor just kind of go in and he's already, hey, as long as you win this fight, now you're automatically going to get a title fight at this weight. And to me, it's going to, I believe, and rightfully so in some instances, it's going to rub some of these fighters the wrong way.
I mean, the counterpoint to this is Conor McGregor did an exclusive interview, or Severe MMA had an exclusive interview, I should say, with Conor McGregor after one of his training sessions. And McGregor admitted to that fact that you just mentioned. He said, I'm picking what I want, and I'm doing what I want. When you rack up $400 million in revenue for the company and back events, you can do whatever the bleep you want. I'm living the what the bleep I want life. That's the life I live, whatever I want, whenever I want. I've earned that through hard work, through sacrifice, and through victory. And when he was asked about moving up to welterweight, he said, I'm coming for that belt, I'm coming for the next belt, I'm coming for the whole company. Why not go up? They get slower and they get less free up there. They get stiffer and they are more stuck than in the lightweight division. So I'll keep going, keep eating, keep training, and keep going until all the belts are wrapped up. This is an unprecedented thing, like you just said. And the more I look at it, like, on the surface, it's like he's spitting in the face of everything that, like, the normal process that we're used to, like you just mentioned, like other fighters, like, you have to rise up the ranks in each division.
Yep.
But the more, go for it.
I was going to say, and also, I mean, you're kind of setting yourself up for a big fall when you do lose.
Yes.
Because, I mean, you're alienating yourself from everybody. You're making it seem as like nobody else is. And I guess, as a fighter, I guess you have to think this way because, you know, it is all about you and your career. Don't get me wrong. But to think that you can just win a championship, move to the next weight class, win a championship, move to the next weight class, win a championship, until you got all the belts, to me is like spitting in the face of every fighter that's in that weight class.
And now, my counter to that is, as dumb as this sounds, but why not? Like, why does, he makes the point that why, like, if I am the most lucrative fight and the history of combat sports, when you go back to boxing, when guys made these, like, when you make a fight, when you saw Roy Jones, like, win, like, through a bunch of different weight classes in boxing, like, just rack up all those belts. When you see Mayweather hold technically, like, 7 belts at once, this is obviously on a different level, but if McGregor can go out and beat Rafael dos Anjos, like, this is, everything is predicated on this, because if I don't think he will, And I don't know what your thoughts on it are, but like I don't think he gets past RDA personally. And if he goes out and proves me wrong, then he's got a point. But when you have someone like this, an unprecedented talent basically on the microphone, selling more fights than you've ever sold before, he is the UFC's golden goose. Like, why not do something? Like, if this incentivizes other fighters to kind of do this, like, do these kinds of stuff, because as much as McGregor is talented as a promoter, the guy knocked out Jose Aldo, who was unbeatable for 10 years in 13 seconds. So I get where he's coming from. Like, why not? Like, why not give him the opportunity? If that's what he wants, he can get it.
I mean, you can say that, but also, I mean, let's look at it this way from a business standpoint for UFC. If he's winning these belts and moving up, he's also going to be dropping these belts, which means
yes,
you're going to have every pay-per-view as number one and number two going against each other to become a heavyweight, to become a champion. I keep saying heavyweight because of wrestling, but to become a champion in the weight class every time. You're never going to have. I mean, so that kind of dilutes the belts in a way. You're kind of. I mean, again, and this is all predicated on him, winning these. As a matter of fact, we're not saying he's going to win guaranteed or anything, but
I don't think he would beat either Lawler or RDA.
No, but I mean, but if he does, but now you're looking at how you're diluting your titles and really making them mean, I won't say nothing, but for a guy just to be like, hey, I want it, I'm going to move up, I'm not going to defend it, I just want to keep moving up. It's like, I just go back to thinking that it's, I understand he always wants to be the bad guy, and right here, he's probably alienated himself to where I think right now, if he was to lose, everybody would be, relieved.
Yeah, because it's a change the sport is obviously not ready for by all this resistance to it. And like you said, like if he goes up to 170, he's never fighting at 145 ever again. Like
I mean, and then if he's gonna move up from there, he's not gonna fight, back down at 150 or whatever. But so I just think that you might as well just, as soon as you win the belt, just at the press conference be like, I don't want this anymore. I'm going to the next. I'm moving up. And that's the way you do it. I mean, just because you're going to have all these belts, but ultimately they're going to strip them of something because they're not going to let them hold on to all these belts. Because if you fight every 3 months, where's he at now? 145. So
145.
1, 2, 3, 4 more weight classes? 4 or 5 weight classes?
Yeah. And realistically, we're talking 155, 170, and maybe, I guess, 185, because there's no, like, physically, he's not big enough to fight. I mean, he can't bulk up like Rumble Johnson did and move from 170 to light heavyweight. It's just not physically possible.
It depends on how he's going to be able to do it. I mean, at his height and everything, probably not. But now you're looking at that. So even if he does those 3 weight classes, if you fight every 3 months, that's 9 months from now. That means the 145 belt won't be defended for over a year. The other belt will be 9 months. You know what I'm saying? I mean, as you go, each belt's going to be, not defended. So what point does UFC be like, all right, we got to start stripping? And that's what happened in boxing.
Yeah.
You started getting all these made-up champions because they kept, I'm not fighting that guy. Okay, well, we're going to strip you. Okay. And those belts mean nothing.
I think the UFC can save themselves here because of the fact that, I mean, there's so few weight divisions personally. And, like, if you ended up with a McGregor Lawler at 170 and then had Frankie Edgar and Jose Aldo fight on that same card for that belt, because realistically speaking here, I don't expect McGregor to be able to go up to be successful at 170. At 155, probably. Like, we can see that happening. It's what he's fought at previously. And that's his normal weight, but it's just something to keep an eye on because this would be something unprecedented to see a guy who's fighting in a super fight, the champion versus champion. We haven't seen this since Penn and George St. Pierre, And it's just
But my thing is, it's really not champion versus
yeah,
champion.
because not both belts are on the line.
Yeah, but I mean, I
But,
get
like,
what you're saying,
and
and I really think the catering that the UFC does to McGregor. I mean, if I'm a fighter, I mean, it rubs me the wrong way. I mean, it really does.
And then my argument, my devil's advocate argument for this is how much money has Conor McGregor made the UFC?
Yeah, but how big has UFC pushed
It's
Conor McGregor?
a give and take. And when you look at a guy like Aljamain Sterling, who just re-signed and is an undefeated bantamweight at ranked number 5, and he talked about when he signed his when he was a free agent, and the UFC said, "Oh, just go see what your worth is out there." Sterling did a masterful job of promoting himself. He became a bigger name just by going out and making a concerted effort on Twitter, like raising his profile. I was calling fights, I think, for Cage Warriors or Cage Fury or whatever the name of the promotion is that is actually on my network, CBS Sports Network, from time to time. And he came back and he said like the UFC's offer went up because like they could see like if you make yourself into something, then the UFC will. Dana White and the Fertittas are smart businessmen. Like they will, if they see somebody making these moves and making these opportunities and raising their name, you're going to get rewarded with a better spot. So it's a give and take, and McGregor's just given so much that he can take that much. And if I'm Conor McGregor, I have no reason to not keep doing that at this point. And if the other fighters are rubbed the wrong way, you have to measure up to what he's doing, which is unprecedented, insane. And even when McGregor came in, his whole the way they pitched him, and one of his first fights was on Fox. Like one of his first big fights was on Fox after the NFC Championship game, because he built himself, and then the ratings reflected that, and then it snowballed and became this avalanche of Conor McGregor. And it's just, again, this is all fantasy booking, this is speculation, but if he beats RDA, like it's not in stone, but it's etched in pencil right now. You're probably going to see Robbie Lawler fight him at 170 for the welterweight title, which, I mean, if you told us that last June when he was supposed to fight Aldo, it's absolutely incredible. And we'll see how it goes, because a lot of the UFC is going to be like the 145, 155, and 170 picture is going to be cleared up come March, the beginning of March, because I can't wait for that fight. I don't think Conor's going to win, but if he proves me wrong and proves a lot of the world wrong, then we can have something that we've never seen before in the UFC, which I think is just pretty cool regardless. And the guy that, like I mentioned, this can completely affect everything going on at 155, 170. The guy who probably affects the most is Carlos Condit. Carlos Condit, there's rumors going around, it was reported on UFC Tonight by Ariel Helwani, that Condit wants a title shot or he will retire. And we remember fondly Carlos Condit, who, at least in my opinion, the opinion of the overwhelming majority of people reacting to that fight, beat Robbie Lawler in January at UFC 195, but of course lost due to decision in what I would definitely call controversial. He's in a weird spot because I've never seen a challenger say, I want a rematch for the title or I'm out. What's your reaction to this, Sean? Because it's weird, because champions, I get, like, if you lose the championship, I want a rematch. But yeah, that's normal. But a challenger doing this, does Condit have a leg to stand on here?
Well, I mean, if you saw the fight, I would say he has a leg to stand on. And I mean, maybe some of these fighters are starting to feel the pressure from, they're seeing what Conor McGregor's doing. Like, hey, I'm going to force the hand and see what happens. I mean, until you kind of fight back or push back, you're not going to know what you're going to get, because obviously if you sit there, you're going to get overlooked. If you're by the UFC, by Dana White, by Fertitta, however you want to do it, the matchmakers, if you sit there and be quiet, obviously that doesn't work, they're gonna overlook you. So, hey, you know what? Let me throw this out there. I mean, if this guy's gonna say, hey, if I beat RDA, I'm gonna automatically jump in and challenge, Robbie Lawler for a title shot. I think I should have been the champion. I don't see why. I mean, to me, he's got a more of a gripe than anyone else.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think the problem is 170 is so loaded, and that the fact that Condit, I mean, essentially to me, I think robbed is too strong of a word, but he won that fight in my eyes, and it's a tough spot for him because what does he have to gain by fighting Rory McDonald, by fighting Tyron Woodley, by fighting Stephen Thompson, who's thrown his name to the picture after completely decimating Johnny Hendricks? What does he have to gain fighting Demian Maia? Demian Maia, who gets Matt Brown next in a great fight in Brazil, I think in May. So he's like, and then the albatross, of course, hanging over this entire division is GSP. What about if GSP wants to fight? He's not gonna come back for a fight against Tyron Woodley in the number one contenders. He's gonna want the title, or he's gonna want a super fight against, because he won't fight Rory McDonald. Because I mean, it's like he's the protege of GSP, and he won't fight Conor McGregor unless that's the crazy thing that happens if he doesn't. Because if he loses to RDA, McGregor probably fights Frankie Edgar. And if he loses, but if he wins, he probably gets Robbie Lawler. So I think Condit's power move isn't going to work. And am I wrong on that, you think?
No, I mean, I don't know if it's going to work or not, but it definitely doesn't hurt to try.
Yeah.
Call the bluff right now, see what happens. Maybe he works it into where, we'll give you a eliminator match. If you win, then you'll get the next title shot or something. You never know what it'll equate to, or maybe he's not bluffing and we won't see him anymore again in the octagon. I mean, that's the thing you get when you bluff. Either they can call your bluff, or you're gonna walk out looking like a genius.
Yeah, I mean, and the important thing to say when it comes to like a guy like McGregor, when a guy like Condit, when they have like this. They have a lot of power behind them, and they have the long term. They have like the record, and they have the people that they've beaten, and they can make these power moves. We're not telling all these other like fighters just to start saying, "Oh, I want," like, I mean, the greatest example of this was on the UFC 194 card, Max Holloway saying, "I want to fight somebody like Aldo or McGregor for the title in Hawaii." You gotta know your role and figure out like where do I make this move and not overshoot what I'm trying to go for here. And it's a weird, like, again, it's a weird spot. We won't know what's going to be settled at 170 and at 155, but we got two possible fights that could be in the mix. One was announced for UFC 197 today. Anthony Pettis and Edson Barbosa for UFC 197, the same card as the John Jones Cormier and Demetrius Johnson, the Henry Cejudo card. And that's a hell of a fight to be the third fight on the card. Like, Edson Barbosa and Anthony Pettis. Showtime, after that bad loss against Eddie Alvarez, gets a guy that he's going to have trouble with Barbosa for sure, Sean.
No, definitely. It's going to be, that card is stacking up very nicely. It's interesting. I mean, you sit there and you try to think, okay, if this is 196, can they fight again? You start, I know I do it. You're trying to do the math of when they could fight again. Because you're trying to figure out, okay, what are they trying to do for 200? Because in the back of our minds, at least in mine, I'm thinking it's got to be almost like the WrestleMania type card.
Yeah.
It's got to be like this big, it's 200, and you start looking at things and you're like, I don't know if everything's going to add up perfectly because they got so many. You get your Fox fights, you get your FS1 cards, you get your UFC Fight Pass cards. you don't know. I mean, ultimately who's going to end up on the Fight Pass is not going to be a title fight. So those are mostly going to be your pay-per-views or possibly a fight night. But now with all these, you got these cards that could be a co-main event of another pay-per-view, and now it's the third fight on this card. So what? How are these other cards going to shape up as we head deeper into this year?
And I'm glad you mentioned that because I want to give you some of the names that are fighting. This is because UFC 197 is April 23rd, and UFC 200 is July 9th.
And you have to remember, this ultimately was probably going to be 198, but things got changed around because of the fight night card.
Yes, and the fact that they were going to skip a month, essentially. They were going to have that Memorial Day card, and then they were going to wait until 200 so there'd be enough build-up. But that got screwed up with the heavyweights. I'm just going to give you some of the names that are headlining these cards. And it's funny you mentioned Fight Pass because Michael Bisping Anderson Silva is a Fight Pass card. Next Saturday, our time, afternoon at 12:45. So, Bisping Anderson Silva.
But I think that's what made that go on to Fight Pass because, again, it would have been like that Ryzen event where you would have had to delay the results are going to get out, unless you do the pay-per-view at, that time because of where the card is. I think they almost were forced to put it on Fight Pass.
Yeah, they have to. Excuse me. They've had to try when they do these other events. Well, Australia worked fine for everybody, but when they've had to maneuver these times, like Bisping and Silva are at 12:45 on a Saturday, which is college football kind of time. So we're just not used to it's still a time that they can do, but putting it on Fight Pass is a perfect idea. Ben Rothwell and Junior Dos Santos, Sunday, April 10th on Fox Sports 1 is at 2 o'clock. That's coming from Croatia.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and then the rest, you have Mark Hunt and Frank Mir in Australia live on Fox Sports 1, so that's just the normal time. But just to go through some of these names, if you're looking at this 3 to 4 month time span of guys coming back and keeping busy, you're looking at Silva, Bisping, and then you get McGregor and Rafael dos Anjos, Mark Hunt, Frank Mir, Ben Rothwell, Junior Dos Santos in April, Khabib Nurmagomedov and Tony Ferguson. Khabib Nurmagomedov's return to the octagon after so much time off because of injury. And one of those guys could easily, that's how dangerous 155 is. And then Cormier and Jones, if Jones goes out, everyone expects John Jones to regain his title. And if Cormier goes out and stops him, does he want to fight again at 200? And if Jones beats Cormier, do we get an immediate rematch at 200 when it comes to that sort of stuff? And then Jacare and Belfort fight in May, which could potentially be, it's the co-main event on a card that might turn into a pay-per-view, which likely will be Verdum and Miocic, I think, headlining that. And then you have Weidman and Rockhold likely getting the 199 spot in June. So the big thing is for the UFC when it comes to 200 is everybody's healthy. That's the nerves here. People got to come out of UFC 196.
So far though this year they've been pretty, knock on wood, lucky compared to what it was happening last year.
Yeah, I mean John Lineker getting dengue fever is the weirdest injury.
Yeah.
And that sucks
for mosquito. Right?
That sucks for Cody Garbrandt. I mean, again, it's nothing to mess with, especially with all the Zika fears over in Brazil going on, and that could, who knows, that could play a part in the May card that they want to have down there too. It gets so close to Olympic time and everything like that. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of moving parts. Pettis Barbosa at 197 being the third quote-unquote best fight on the card is absolutely insane. I just love the way Barbosa fights. The kicking that he does is some of the most, like the dude should register those legs. They are weapons. It is nasty what he can do. And Showtime coming after that it was a bad loss against Alvarez. It just looked bad because you have this guy who's just, I mean, known for his incredible athleticism, for his primetime highlights from a former champion, and Alvarez has completely grounded him by being essentially annoying and fighting ugly, but he won. This is a big fight for him. He's got to beat Barbosa.
Fight. Yeah, he's got to. We've been using it a lot, I think, around here. It's almost a must-win.
Yeah,
it's almost getting that way for a lot of these fighters now, because some of these divisions are getting so top-heavy that a loss can knock you down pretty far. I mean, not that a loss. Again, we've said it before. Everybody's going to lose in MMA once at least, but depending on, I guess, how bad the loss is, it can affect how far, and then you might have to go to the back of the line, and that line might be down to 7, 8, and now you're trying to fight back up to get number 1 contender. That's a long road to travel.
And with the exception of a few fights here and there, a lot of guys have been fighting to move up, and because they want to try to get up as quickly as possible because they don't want to lose. We're not getting, like, with the exception of the Arlovsky-Mir fight where just 2 guys fought not to lose, we're seeing guys make moves and be riskier than we would have never seen before. And I think it's a great thing that we have so many, like, especially in that 145 to 180 range, or 185 range, because when you look at middleweight, Rockhold, Weidman, Souza, Belfort, Tim Kennedy, Silva, Robert Whittaker, who made some noise in Australia, Bisping, and welterweight, Lawler, McDonald, Woodley, Thompson, Condit, Maya, Matt Brown, and you can tell in lightweight, which is a complete murderer's row, RDA, Alvarez, Nurmagomedov, Pettis, Ferguson, Cowboy, Nate Diaz, Michael Johnson, Edson Barbosa, Dustin Poirier, Ali Quinta. It's like we're getting a renaissance in these divisions, which is great.
Yeah, and then like you just said, one loss. Look how far you're going to fall in that division. I mean,
yeah, and that's why Nate Diaz's camp wants to fight with Eddie Alvarez. And that was also reported on UFC Tonight by Ariel Helwani, which is great when we record after that because he just drops nuggets of information. it like fuels every podcast therefore and after, ours and others. But that's a fight for Alvarez. Like, does he want to stay busy? Because what the hell is going on with RDA and McGregor? Like, that holds the key to so many different things. And, like, does he want to prove to himself? Like, if Khabib goes out and beats Tony Ferguson, he's undefeated. Like, period. If Pettis goes out and beats Barbosa, if Cowboy fights, if Cowboy beats other Cowboy, and then Cowboy beats somebody else, because Cerrone will want to fight like in a month, because now he's not on that timetable anymore where he has to wait for his title shot. Like, Alvarez has to make a decision. Like, I'm the number 1 contender technically at lightweight when it comes to the UFC rankings, which are who the hell knows who votes for these rankings sometimes. People much less qualified than should be when it comes to these voting things.
Then also you never know, like we said too, if one guy gets hot or says something, and promotes himself better, you never know who could jump who as far as, hey, you might be number 3, but that guy at number 4 can be a lot more entertaining fight and get more money for us. And 4 is going to hop in there and get that shot. So that also will change around some of these rankings and things like that.
Yeah, with the exception of Anthony Rumble Johnson, is there a true number 1 contender at any division? No.
No, not really. No, I'm trying to think. I'm like, no.
No, because at middleweight, I mean, Weidman, Jacare, and then you can make the argument if Bisping beats Silva or Anderson Silva beats Michael Bisping. At heavyweight, it's a complete mess with Miocic and Rothwell, I think, are the 2 guys there. And Cain Velasquez was supposed to get the fight, too. Welterweight, lightweight, featherweight, we mentioned being complete bust all over the place. Bantamweight and flyweight, too, because Johnson's cleared out the division and Cruz has got a bunch of different guys aiming for that title shot. So it's a weird kind of spot. And it's parity. Like, it's who's the flavor of the month, almost. You got to make sure that lasts for longer than that month. because you don't want to be off stage. Wonderboy Thompson jumped 5 spots in the rankings after completely annihilating Hendricks. And
that was a very impressive showing too.
yes, people were saying he should get the title shot, and people were forgetting about Rory McDonald to put on the fight of the year against Lawler, and then Woodley who tried to fight Hendricks, and Hendricks couldn't make the weight cut, and Woodley's just like, can I fight now? Because
isn't that sometimes how it works? Whoever's the hottest at that point, they kind of remember. Oh, did you see that knockout by Thompson? Now all of a sudden he is the flavor of the month, and he might get that title shot.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane, and it's fun for us to try to speculate and just figure out what the hell is going on next. And it's absolutely crazy at those points. Let's jump in real quick. It's not a huge card this week. The Cowboy versus Cowboy fight. We talked about this on the Lost podcast, actually. So we haven't talked about it since. And the octagon is not big enough for the two of them, unfortunately, in Pittsburgh. So somebody's coming out a winner. Yeah, that was a terrible joke. I just the silence was the appropriate response to that joke. But
if I had the cricket sound effect, I would have played it for you. But I didn't.
But Alex Cowboy Oliveira gets Donald Cowboy Cerrone in Pittsburgh this Sunday. So remember that it's a Sunday card, not a Saturday.
Yep. Well, like we said too earlier, this is a must win for Cerrone.
Yes, for sure. So I can't say Cowboys. Cerrone is 28-6 with 1 no contest. Alex Cowboy Oliveira is 13-2 with 1 no contest. And this will not be easy for Cowboy. Get it?
Which one?
Yeah. This won't be easy for Donald Cerrone because Oliveira's like claimed some names here in his recent fights where KJ Noons, Peter Hallman, like these aren't like just jokes of fighters. And this is his big first shot. And it's a hell of a shot to take when you get Donald Cerrone in your first main event, essentially. So this is no gimme by any stretch. I expect Cerrone to win, but man, that's a tricky hiccup for Cerrone to kind of jump back into the top of this incredible lightweight spot. Who you got in this one?
I mean, look, I'm hoping Cerrone is Cerrone this time and not the Cerrone we got for the heavyweight for the title.
McGregor said some things about him, by the way. That I said Conor McGregor said some things about him that we can't repeat on this podcast.
Yeah, but I mean, no, we both said it's a must-win for him. I mean, look, what are we gonna get? I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking he should. You know, it's gonna be a great fight, but I think he'll be able to get the victory. But if he shows up like he did the title fight, I don't think he could beat many people.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't show up for that title fight. Plain and simple. So he's got to go out there and he's got to make a statement to basically say, like, if that's what he wants to do. Like, Cerrone's one of those guys who, when he was on a roll, like, he didn't care about fighting for the title, and he just wanted to fight and, you know, do what he does to make money and win these fights so he can win more money. And that mentality was great for him, but when the pressure cooker kind of turned up a little bit on him, and he had to wait and he had to focus, it just didn't work out. So I think this is the kind of spot where it's good for him. He gets a guy in Oliveira I think he should beat, but as we've seen with some of these fights recently, nothing is written in stone. Rowan Jucao Carnero fights Derek Brunson in the co-main event. Brunson's an interesting guy at middleweight because he's on a 3-fight win streak. He's beaten Sam Alvey, he's beaten Ed Herman, he's beat Lorenz Larkin back in August of 2014, which I think that's a big name to kind of do. Those guys at middleweight, that's kind of the jump up to get like a better, like probably somebody in the top 10 to try to make a name. Cody Garbrandt, like we mentioned, lost John Lineker as his opponent. He'll get Augusto Mendez making his UFC debut, and Garbrandt's a prospect that a lot of people have talked about at 135, and he coming out of Team Alpha Male. He's beaten Henry Briones. He beat Marcus Brimage. But this fight is don't lose, because this is a guy that nobody knows. He's a prospect. The first time he's in the UFC is fighting, so he's got to come out scot-free. It's tough getting an opponent on this short notice, but he's got to go out and win just to keep his kind of spot and slowly start to rise through those ranks.
But haven't we seen when that's the one that kind of gets the bite, the one that the guy from nowhere substitutes in and ends up making a bigger name for himself because of the short notice?
Yes, and it's one of those things where is it like, it goes back to the debate where is it smart to fight a guy like on short notice when your opponent pulls out? Like, is it a smart decision? Probably not, but it will look better in your eyes if you go out and beat a guy that just came, like, was your, like, basically saying you can beat anybody, because you look bad to the promotion if you don't want to, like, if that fight has to be moved or anything like that. And Garbrandt said on the John Eric and Kenny Florian podcast that he wants to beat this guy and then fight Lineker in a month. So, and do it at 197. So, we'll see how that goes. He's got to get through Mendes first. So, not a huge card, but something to keep an eye on, especially if Cerrone somehow goes down to Oliveira, because then Oliveira is sort of jumping up into that sort of setup. So, a couple other things I wanted to mention here, the little tickets to note until we get to two more big topics that I want to focus on. Rafael dos Anjos says he's now healthy, and he wants a title shot at bantamweight, which he's a name that we haven't heard from in a long time, given the fact that he's had ankle injuries and he's been hurt for a while. He's 23-4. He's number 4 ranked bantamweight. And remember, he owns a victory over TJ Dillashaw. And Dillashaw wants that rematch against Cruz. I don't think that will happen. He last fought against Brian Caraway in October 2014, so he's been out for long. And he basically said, Uriah Favors had 1 million title shots. Why don't I get one? So if you get,
true.
Yeah, he's not wrong. So I don't know what the deal is with Cruz. I don't know how soon he's going to defend his belt. And if I'm him, I make sure I get fully healthy and fix that heel that tore during the fight. I think Dillashaw Favors is the way to go with that. And then I would love to see a Sun Sao fight. Aljamain Sterling, newly minted free agent, signed back with the UFC on Monday, because that would be a fight. Or Thomas Almeida, who's clearly rising up the ranks, the undefeated Brazilian prospect. Because I think Cruz will be out for a little while, so that's the fight to make there. And I wanted to mention Sterling because we talked about him earlier when it came to the free agency stuff. I think that was a smart move for both sides, bringing him back, because he's got the personality, he's got the chops when it comes to being on the mic and promoting himself very well. And I didn't think him going anywhere else really benefited him, except for maybe upfront money somewhere, going to Bellator or World Series of Fighting or anything like that. And another guy...
I think the Benson Henderson signing maybe woke up the UFC a little bit more too, though. Because I don't think they thought that anybody would actually not sign with their promotion.
And it's a different kind of... it's a different kind of career trajectory, too, because Sterling's about to explode if he keeps going where he's going, and Benson Henderson is at the end of his career.
Yeah, but would you still think that, like, I'm UFC, I'm the big promotion, no matter what, I mean, not that you're going to lowball, like, big time, but if you're off just a little bit on the money, do you think that in your wildest dreams that a competitor or a fighter is going to say, you know what, I'm going to go to Bellator?
I think the upfront money was for Henderson, the way Bellator structured their contract, I think was just too good for him to pass up. Because if you're the UFC,
yeah, definitely. I mean,
if you're the UFC, like, what, besides the fact that Bendo was co-headlining and headlining Fox Sports 1 cards, and you're paying, it's like the old argument, what, like, how much is he worth? Because Benson Henderson is probably not a guy who's going to rise up the ranks and get another title shot. But Henderson is obviously felt differently and still wants to be able to do that. Do you pay him for what he's done for you and take care of him, and then you still use him in that capacity, or are you better off just cutting ties with him? It's like in the NBA when the Lakers went out and paid Kobe Bryant $25 million for no apparent reason whatsoever, because Kobe's a role player and a spot starter at this point on a good team in his career. But do you go out and pay him that much money because of all he's done, and do you go out and pay Benson Henderson that much money, or are you just better off, like, if you're not going to, basically what you're worth now is we're better off taking that money and investing it in somebody else, like an up-and-coming prospect like Sterling.
I can agree with that.
It's a tough business. Like, it's tough because Bendo's been so good for so long, and he's such a fun fighter to watch. But just from a business perspective, that's where the UFC is coming from. And Benson Henderson probably got a contract that will benefit him very greatly with Bellator, and he's immediately fighting for a title. He's not fighting Will Brooks, but he's fighting for the next title up. So I think it worked out best for both parties, and I think Sterling especially works out best for both parties. And the other free agent that signed is Alistair Overeem, who I didn't think was going to go anywhere else. But Overeem beating Junior Dos Santos threw a whole wrench into those contract negotiations probably as they started. But Overeem coming back, and he said there was no other place I'd rather be, and there was no really anybody else that he wanted to go to.
That's easy to say as you're signing that big contract.
Oh, yeah, but the problem is at heavyweight, I mean, Overeem can still fight.
Yeah.
He said he never looked beyond the UFC during free agency, which, of course, is like, there's no way because, I mean, Scott Coker, Bellator, Strikeforce, you can make the connections. He said he didn't talk to anybody else, but I can tell you this, the UFC is where the best fighters are, and I consider myself the best fighter. I guess he didn't want to fight, Ken Shamrock or Tito Ortiz or Dada 5000 or Kimbo Slice. I don't think any of those moved the needle.
Bobby Lashley.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, Lashley is the weird one to me. Like, I wish he was fighting, like, in the UFC. Like, that's a name where it's like, all right, I want to see what he can do against the best talent.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also the professional wrestling fan in me that wants to see that happen. But, like, Overeem really had no other way to, like, it's like, I'm the third best heavyweight according to your fighter rankings. Pay me as such. I want to fight Ben Rothwell. I want to fight Travis Brown. I want to fight Stipe Miocic, and maybe I get a title shot. And look at Verdum, where he is now. He's the champion. And you like when the guys like Lawler and Verdum, who were kind of just not down and out, but just kind of laying in the weeds and like make their rise up the ranks real quick. And at a heavyweight, anything can happen. So Overeem's smart to take that contract, and he'll definitely headline UFC Rotterdam in the Netherlands coming up in a couple months. So it's, a no-brainer for him. And, we'll see what happens. If he goes out and beats his opponent and heavyweight kind of stays this weird organism that morphs and changes as the UFC calendar closes every year, who knows? We could see Overeem in a title fight come the end of the year. So it will be very interesting to see how that all goes. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, I want to get to the Ronda Rousey comments that we reported on earlier in the week and her interview with Ellen DeGeneres, which revealed a lot about her mindset following her loss at UFC 193. You're listening to TFM Live, the official podcast of thefullmountmma.com. We'll be right back.
For all your latest news and rumors of the UFC, go to thefullmountmma.com. Now back to the TFM Live podcast. Here's Brian Coyle and Sean Stanley.
Welcome back, everybody, to TFM Live, the official podcast for FullMountMMA.com. I am Brian Coyle, joined alongside with Sean Stanley. You can follow us at The Full Mount on Twitter, at SS Sports Talk for Sean, at BCoyle11 for me. And we wanted to get into a topic that was all over the place early on in the week. Ronda Rousey made her first talk show appearance, and serious talk show appearance, on the Ellen Degeneres show on Tuesday, and Ellen talked to her about UFC 193 and basically everything that went down and how Rousey felt. And the interview got really serious really quickly. Rousey talked about she was knocked out on her feet, which, I mean, a lot of people assumed when Holm nailed her the first time. She said, I was knocked out on my feet like the first time I got hit. And that first hit, I cut up my whole mouth and knocked my teeth loose. I felt like I almost couldn't see. Like I could see, but I couldn't tell how far my hand was from my face or how far she was from me. When you sit, you're not moving. You're still aware of where your body is. That's like part of your brain telling you where you're in space. It's kind of like turned off. I was swinging blindly. So, I mean, Holm won the fight from the first strike, which we should have known more in the moment. But man, like going back to like that night when you were watching that fight, Sean, like what was your reaction when that first happened?
No, I mean the knockout, or just how devastating Holm was when controlling the fight.
Yeah, when the first strike, when you like all of a sudden the switch turned, like in everybody's mind, like, oh my God, she can do this. She can beat her.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the whole time I was like, why are you standing in front of? We talked about it before too. Here, why are you standing in front of the boxer that knows what they're doing when they're striking? I just didn't understand that whole philosophy. But now, maybe after that punch, maybe she didn't realize she was standing directly in front of her anyways, because she was already pretty much out on her feet. So maybe that had a factor in there. But I mean, I just didn't understand why. It's like, look, if I know, you're a good wrestler, I'm going to watch for you to shoot. If I know you're a boxer, I'm going to watch your hands, but I'm going to move and try to. And it just seemed like, I think she thought she was invincible. And when she got that first punch, obviously it not only woke her up, but it knocked her out on her feet as well.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Her trainers and her coach was still terrible, but maybe she just.
Oh, no, yeah, because they were in the corner saying, "You're doing great. You won that round."
Yeah, okay. And it's just Rousey wasn't able to just cognitively put everything together, which makes complete sense. And she also talked about not so much making excuses, but it's the first time she felt ever tired going into the fight. I mean, Rousey was doing all this media and doing all this stuff. It does take the toll on somebody, but I mean, she said it herself. Like when you're the champion, you have to deal with the life of the champion. And it'd be interesting because Conor McGregor is going to be on Conan like 3 days before his fight against RDA. So, McGregor's the ultimate media hound. Will that impact him in his title fight? But the quotes that everyone picked up on immediately was how she felt in the hospital, how she felt after the fight, and how her mind was all over the place. And this was incredibly serious stuff. She said, honestly, my thought, I was like in the medical room. I was like down in the corner. I was in the corner, and I was like, what am I anymore if I'm not this? I was literally sitting there and thinking about killing myself. That exact second, I'm like, I'm nothing. What do I do anymore? And no one gives a bleep about me anymore without this. And depression is a scary freaking thing. And I've had experience with it. I know people that have experience with it. This was kind of like such a high and a low for Rousey when it comes to something like this. And when you're living on that high and you're riding that wave all the way up and it comes crashing down, it's really hard. And it's a really scary thing just to have that thought in general. And you really have to feel for her mind to even go to that dark place. And she said herself, like she didn't feel right in the head until the next morning, and with concussions and mental health being such a prevalent thing in this business now, which is great, thank God. And it was really, I mean, people are gonna say, "Oh, she just said I just thought about killing myself." Like people say that offhand all the time, but this was a real scary thing. And mindset-wise, when you're a fighter, and she felt like she was invincible, and she was brought down to this level, and luckily she said, and thankfully those dark thoughts subsided when she, with the help of her boyfriend and fellow fighter Travis Brown, she said, to be honest, I looked up, I saw my man Travis standing up there, and I looked at him, and she said, I need to be alive to have his babies, I need to stay alive. So this whole interview is incredibly revealing about Rousey's mindset, and she said she plans to fight Holly Holm, which saying that Holm gets past Miesha Tate later on in the year, but the filming of Roadhouse may have gotten delayed until May, and we don't know when we will see Rousey again. What was your thoughts when you heard like that specific quote went like her mindset like after the fight?
I mean, it just goes to show. I mean, again, it's almost like that. I mean, she was a superstar. She was the face of the UFC. Mm-hmm. She could do no wrong.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, punches later, a kick here, a kick there, and everybody that was behind her on Twitter turned on her. I mean, it ultimately I'm sure that felt worse to her than that. And then plus she's putting herself up there. I mean, she never lost. I don't know how anybody honestly can think they could go through their whole UFC or MMA career and think that, they're never going to lose. I mean, I understand you got to have that, that chip on your shoulder like you're better than everybody else. But also to think that, one loss can be that devastating. Mm-hmm. I mean, it maybe, when you start thinking about like where the coach is and kind of like how her mom said, that the Daivari hit gold with her.
Yeah.
But maybe that's just the kind of mindset that she has. She's just very, I don't want to say simple, but like she just, I don't know if she's, thinks that far out, I guess, or whatever. Because to me, it seems like ultimately she thought she was never going to lose. She thought she was that good to where nobody, she was starting to believe the hype train that the media, fans, and Dana White's just as guilty as everybody else. Everybody's like, she's the best. She could beat some of the men. Yeah. How many times did we hear that? She could get in the ring with most of these men and probably beat them over and over. And, and then all of a sudden now, kick later, and now it's like, oh. And you could see Dana White. I mean, you could see when it was like, just everybody knew right there that was like, that's going to change the women's fighting for us right now because she's not going to be around for a while.
Yeah, and then, I mean, several people came out and talked about this after the fact. Mike Tyson was asked about it, and he said it was a moment in time. We all have those moments, and it, like, when you go to that, like, if you ever have to go to that place, and I hope no one ever feels that way, and if you do, you should, of course, get help. And when you go to that place, you feel like you have no control. And speaking from experience here, like you don't know what you're going, you don't know there's no way out, and you're just in this pit, and you can't quantify or feel how to get out of there. And her losing was a devastating reality check, like you just mentioned. And it's funny because like Tyson spoke out about this, Dana White spoke out about this, Holly Holm talked about it. But of all people that I thought kind of put it succinctly, and I think in the right words, was Brock Lesnar. And Brock Lesnar was on SportsCenter. They were doing a hit promoting his appearance on SmackDown this week.
Yeah, they do that thing with Coach each week, a different WWE superstar host with him on SportsCenter at 9 o'clock.
Yeah. I think it's actually on, you link to it on your Twitter feed, which you see at us, Sports Talk. And he said, I'm a big fan of Ronda's and have been since the beginning. I think one thing that I learned and that she should have learned a long time ago is that you have to learn how to lose before you can actually win. And when you look at that on the surface, it's like, oh, it's just, yeah, duh, like you have, like, whatever. But when you look into that, like, more deeply, he's saying, like, you have to be able to deal with the adversity. You have to be able to learn and not take every loss like it's the end of the world.
Well, you have to remember his first fight. He lost in the first round, I think, in under 2 minutes.
Yeah, he lost to Frank Mir.
Yeah, to Frank Mir. I mean, he took him down. Well, he bull rushed him. Everybody's like going crazy. Mir, withstood it, hooked him in that leg lock, and he couldn't get out.
Yeah, and
that was only a minute and a half, and all of a sudden, he could have looked at that and been like, "Oh, that was my chance. I blew it."
Mm.
But he didn't. They used it. Like, oh, look what this guy could become, and look how it worked out for him. I mean, although it was a very short-lived career, and you wonder how different that would have been. But look, he lost and came back. I think he almost like lost one. It's like I don't think he put 2 back-to-backs in a row.
And Lesnar, if you remember, I believe he talked about it on Stone Cold's podcast when he appeared or something, where he said, like, after his first fight when he lost, he was like, oh my God, I lost. I blew it. Blew my shot. And Dana White came in, he's like, that was freaking awesome. Like, he didn't say freaking, but that was freaking awesome. Like, that was a great fight. Like, I can't wait to see you fight again. Like, this is, like, how it's going to be. And you have to realize, like, yes, you lose. But it's not about when losing. It's about how you pick yourself back up after it and how you conduct yourself and how you feel and how you deal with that loss and deal with going down that way. And then I think Rousey has now learned what happens. You can't go to that place. You can't go to that place because it benefits nobody. And it hurts.
Get with Clay Guida, Ronda Rousey. That's who you need to get with.
Yeah, I mean.
He does exciting fights. He doesn't win all the time.
Yeah.
But he'll get out there the next fight and fight just as hard.
Yeah, and Lesnar continued on saying that was one thing that my coach taught me at a very young age because I was a bad loser whenever I get beat. You got to be able to get back on the horse. Life is precious and very short, and one fight is not going to make or break a career. She's already had a Hall of Fame career. She's already the most famous woman in MMA, in mixed martial arts history. She's become an icon in that sense. And she's getting to do movies, and she's getting to do all this stuff, and she's going to have a great post-fight career. And honestly, if she doesn't beat Holly Holm, I don't think she's going to fight ever again. But, like, to get back her title. But it's up to Ronda to take this opportunity, learn from it, which it seems like she has, and she seems very genuine in all her responses, and she's enjoying a bunch of outside opportunities. She's being in movies. She's on the cover of Sports Illustrated. She's doing all these things, and she's gonna get back to fighting, and she'll find out in this training camp whether she's fighting Holly Holm or Miesha Tate, whether or not she can pull it back together and become the juggernaut that she was. And we'll see how that goes. But right now she has, like, I'm glad she was able to come out of that place and come out of that mindset, because before this, and when you read the details of that Ramona Shelburne piece when she did an interview with ESPN, like, you could tell this is something that was eating away at her. And you have to be able to realize that it's in the past. Like, there's nothing else you can do about it. You can think and you can and drive yourself insane over that fact, and you can put yourself into these deep places and dark places. But it's only you coming back up and what you do next that will make you feel better and what will shape the rest of your future when it comes to this type of situation. So I thought that was, if you haven't seen the interview, I highly recommend it. And she also did a fun interview later on the Jimmy Fallon show. So it seems like Rousey's starting to feel like herself again. I don't know when we'll see her next in the octagon. I really don't. Like, I couldn't tell you if that was going to be the end of this year. But,
well, she needs to make sure her head's straight before she, any chances of getting back in the ring. Just because, look, if your mind's not straight, you could lose quicker and even more devastating the second time.
Yeah, for sure. And I wanted to end the show. I mean, that was a very thoughtful and deep conversation that we had just there, Sean. I wanted to end the show on the exact opposite of that. So Bellator is having a card on Friday, and it's gonna be one of those things where is this really a thing? Is this really on TV right now? Because Royce Gracie and Ken Shamrock are fighting, and to people, I mean, that only focus on the UFC, obviously people seem to know Kimbo Slice's name, but he's fighting a guy by the name of Dada 5000. And Sean, I'm going to consider you our relative, our native Bellator expert on this, especially being in South Florida.
Lucky me.
Yeah.
Lucky me.
Can you tell us more about Dada 5000 and Kimbo Slice? Why don't you give people a backstory of like how this fight came to fruition?
Apparently, it was Dada 5000 was in the camp of Kimbo back in the day. It's kind of, I guess I won't say a soldier for him or whatever, but he's like a
muscle,
I guess a partner type thing and
bodyguard
type, yeah, however you want to do it. Because I don't know that Kimbo Slice needs a bodyguard, but we'll leave it at that. But anyway, so he was a bodyguard for Kimbo, and apparently things were said and promises were made, and he did a couple, I guess, fights that Kimbo didn't want to do. All these stories have come out recently, during the hype for this fight where, I had to fight people that Kimbo was scared to fight, just so, he could either scout them or I could beat them, and then it wasn't even an issue anymore. And then, Dada broke away, did his thing, and Corbin, Billy Corbin did a good documentary there on there, and that's where he kind of took off from there. And now apparently he wants revenge for what he feels is being done wrong by Kimbo Slice, and they're going to handle that in Houston, I guess, this weekend sometime.
It's basically the saddest comeback story of if you could put a sad comeback sports movie, like this is what this is. This is absolutely insane.
This is going to be Rocky, where Apollo Creed and Rocky knock each other out.
No, it's going to be Kimbo Slice beating the crap out of a guy. That's what this is going to be. And thank you for putting that so succinctly. I'm just going to completely eviscerate both of these guys. And like you would think on a card that had Royce Gracie and Ken Shamrock fighting, it's like that would be the weirdest fight of the night. It's not even close. And like they'll settle a trilogy 23 years in the making, as Bellator has put it.
Yes.
I couldn't care less. I mean, Royce Gracie.
I just like how they put the one thing there, like the two that began the MMA fighting will end. I was like, does that mean there's gonna be no more fights?
Yeah, are we out of jobs? Like, is that what happened?
I mean, is that the company's done?
Yeah.
That's why they signed Benson Henderson to the contract. They're like, hey, we're not gonna honor it anyways. We'll be gone by the time we get to Houston.
Here's some upfront money to give us some notability for. It was just a ploy to promote this fight this entire time.
Exactly.
We'll have to make a couple phone calls after this podcast, now that we know that this is going to end all mixed martial arts as we know it. But, man, this is like good for Gracie and Shamrock. I don't think Gracie is even wearing his trademark gi during the fight, which I saw that on Twitter.
I got another question for you.
Yeah.
What promoter said, you know what, I think what we should do is Gracie, Shamrock. I think it's a great idea. Mm-hmm. What are they thinking?
I don't know. I really don't know. But again, they'll fight. Two old guys will fight and tire themselves out in like the second round. Not even maybe. But I want to talk about Dada 5000 and Kimbo Slice because it is just something so absurd. It's ridiculous, and I can't repeat. I wish we weren't family friendly sometimes, so I could repeat the words that were said at the Bellator 149 press conference. You just Google it, you'll find it. Kimbo Slice made comments about Dada 5000's manhood, and I'm not talking about his personality of him being a man. I'm talking about his literal physical manhood. That you can look that up if you want, referring to them as infant-sized I can't even get more descriptive than that at this point.
I think you said it enough right there. I think that's good enough. If they can't figure it out from there,
yeah.
we may have to get spell out this podcast.
Yes. And I want to, because MMA Fighting did a great write up of this, and they put it. This is the way they described the Fear Dada 5000 Harris, a one-time YouTube sensation turned. He was in Dogfight, as you mentioned. And Kimbo Slice, of course, parlayed his notoriety from YouTube into a big business fighting career that began with Elite XC and basically shut down whatever that promotion was that was on CBS when he lost to Seth Petrozelli. And Kimbo wants to...
He literally shut the doors on a company.
Yeah, he did. He's 5-2 in his MMA career. Remember that. But he's fighting Harris, who there's a great Instagram of Dada 5000 hitting the pads, and my 95-year-old grandpa hits the pads better than Dada 5000. Like, he was like I think he said after this, he's like, I don't want to show him anything. Like, you're not going to show him that you can hit the pads at faster than one punch per every 2 seconds. Like, it was absolutely absurd. And we were talking about it before the podcast. This fight is even crazier given the fact, like, if you've seen Dogfight and you know who Dada 5000 is, it's a great movie. Like, I don't want to like bury Billy Corbin's work. It's a terrific movie by burying Dada 5000. He was the guy promoting these fights, these backyard fights. He was never really fighting in them. So he was just kind of like, you're going to fight, and I'm going to get everyone from the neighborhood, and we're going to see all this. And he last fought in 2011. He's going to get hurt. Like, Kimbo at least has fought before, like, in 7 MMA fights. Like, he's legitimately going to... I'm worried for this dude's safety. I'm going to watch, but it's going to be a car crash. It's going to be a car wreck. Like,
I just wonder how long it's going to go.
I think he gets dropped inside of Conor McGregor time. I think he gets.
You think that quick, huh? You don't think they're going to drag it out a little bit?
I think Kimbo's going to knock him once and going to drop him. All right, fine. I'll give him within 30 seconds. I won't go to 13
What happens if Dada 5000 wins, though? That's the end of Kimbo's MMA career, right?
No. They'll do a rematch. Come on, that's not even close. Bellator 152, Slice versus Harris, the rematch.
3 months later, it'll be the rematch.
I don't think they'll.
Run it again.
Yeah, they'll run it back. They'll run it back. Oh.
It'll be the same card, just rematches.
Royce Gracie and Ken Shamrock will both get out of wheelchairs.
They'll come down on the motorized scooters.
Yeah, they'll just run into each other. But man, if you want to see a circus, turn into Spike TV on Friday night. And if I recommend enjoying some adult beverages to make the fight tolerable. But that's a fight that if I was a betting man, and I won't be doing what's the odds on Bellator 149 like I do for all our UFC cards, I would lay heavy money on Kimbo, which I never thought I would say in my entire life. I'd bet a lot on Kimbo Slice. But hey, more power to him, right? At least, but no Fedor. I'm waiting for Fedor Kimbo. That's the next fight, right? Once he beats a guy like
that's
Dada
gotta
5000.
As soon as Kimbo wins this, Fedor's gonna get in the cage and confront him.
Yes, it's one of those. It's gonna be an old wrestling run-in with those two. Oh man, sometimes our job is it's so technical.
Although actually, Lashley's come out and said he wanted Slice next.
Oh,
but that'd be interesting to see. Lashley
would eviscerate him. Man, wow. That would be something. Does Kimbo earn, my serious question for Scott Coker is, does Kimbo earn a heavyweight title shot by beating Dada 5000? Is that how it works? Because...
who's the Bellator heavyweight champion?
That's also a great question. But Sean, I don't know what you're weighing in at these days, but if you can get your hands on Dada 5000 in a fight, I think you may be able to fight the Bellator.
You know what's going to happen tomorrow night? They're going to announce that the Dada 5000 Kimbo Slices for the
interim belt.
Bellator Heavyweight Championship.
I mean, isn't Lashley the champion? He's got to be, right?
No.
He's not.
He's not their champion. No, he's not. No.
Okay, we cover this sport, and we don't know who the Bellator heavyweight champion is. That's a real thing. Like, this isn't like, because I know Liam McGeary is light heavyweight, because he actually had a good fight with Tito Ortiz, believe it or not. Vitaly Minakov has defended his title once since winning it back in 2013. Yeah.
Oh, that should say everything you need to know about Bellator.
He beat Czech Congo at Bellator 115. Yeah, in Atlantic City. Oh, I could have seen that fight.
That is right. I watched that fight. That's his only fight that he's defended the title?
That's the only time he's defended the title. He defeated... Hold on a second.
That's right, because that's right when Czech Congo got let go from UFC, and it was like a big thing.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. They're how? I don't know.
How does it? So a champion's defended his belt once in 3 years, and he's still the champ.
Yeah. He's still the guy. Andre.
I guess we'll wait until he gets Shamrock's age, and then he can defend it again.
Andre Koreshkov, by the way, is the excuse me, the middleweight, or is this? Yeah, he's their welterweight champ, and that's what Benson Henderson gets next. So Benson Henderson will be their welterweight champ soon enough. I think they're fighting at Mohegan Sun in Connecticut, but I could be wrong. The only guy, like I mentioned, Lashley, Will Brooks, a lightweight, is pretty good, fun to watch. Tito Ortiz, Kimbo. I mean, we got the possibilities are endless after this fight, Sean.
Oh, in Bellator, you never know. They end up putting a flyweight against a heavyweight.
Yeah,
they don't care. There's no such thing as weight divisions there.
Hell, they put a boxing ring next to a cage and called it Dynamite. Yeah. So that happened.
Too bad it didn't blow up the ratings.
Oh, see, that's worse than my cowboy joke, and I think that's the perfect thing to end on. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in and staying with us for this long. On this podcast, some hard-hitting Bellator breakdowns. You can find us online at The Full Mount on Twitter, at BCoyle11, where I'm going to be tweeting feverishly about the trade deadline in the NBA, hoping that the Knicks can trade Jose Calderon for, I don't know, something. Maybe like front court tickets to like Laker games or something, like, because his value is worth nothing. Who knows what's going to happen there.
He's going to get traded for the infamous cash.
Player to be named later is my favorite.
Player to be named later in cash.
Yes. So we'll see how that goes. But again, you can find us online at The Full Mount, thefulmountmma.com. Sean, you got anything else you want to talk about on a podcast that's gone off the rails?
Just tune into us on Friday and Sunday, and we'll probably a bunch of live tweeting from the Full Mount Twitter account, your Twitter account at BCoyle11, and mine at SS Sports Talk. So,
I will be tweeting hot takes on this Bellator fight for sure.
It shall be interesting.
There'll be fire emojis. Like there will be many emojis. And if I could find a way to bet on Kimbo Slice, I absolutely will. So, thank you guys for listening. For Sean, I am Brian. We're out.
The TFM Live Podcast is brought to you by TheFullMountMMA.com. Check us out on Twitter at TheFull